Hello, everybody. This is R.K. Mullins, author of Time for a Serial Killer, A Lifetime of Murder. And coming February the 14th, remember now, Confessions Before Death, Satan's Revenge is coming out on my mama's birthday. Help me celebrate her birthday. Buy my book. Today, we got George on here. I don't know George's last name because I was an idiot and I did not ask him. But he's written 2 books. He's working on a 3rd one. First book is called Stained Glass, and the second book is called Cyclist Club. Both are in the crime genre, thriller type books that I write. So me and him got a little bit in common here. But I'm not going to take all the show up talking about it. Let's introduce George. George, give us a breakdown on you and your books.
Hey, Ron, how are you? Thanks for having me on. Well, there's 2 books in the crime genre, like Ron said. One is Stained Glass, which takes place in Long Island, and it involves Colombian drug cartels and the Italian mafia. And Richard DiNapoli, who is head of the crime family in Long Island, wants to make a deal with Jorge de la Cruz, who is the Colombian kingpin.
Right.
And his idea is to bring a very potent form of cocaine up into Long Island and use Long Island as a distribution point for the whole Northeast and eventually work across the country. Now, the thing about this cocaine is it's the most potent that anybody has ever seen. So it can be cut 2, 3, 4 times, which makes it extremely profitable. And Richard DiNapoli wants to get on that money train. The only thing standing in his way is a detective, Rodriguez, from Las Vegas, who gets transferred to this Long Island town called Ocean View, a fictitious town, to try and catch DiNapoli and break this up. The reason they transfer him out of Vegas is because he got involved in an international incident. So his boss, Elizabeth McMahon, transferred him to Long Island to get him out of that. And he's a good cop, he knows what he's doing, so she puts him on this case. Okay. And as it goes along, there's a lot of investigative work. Rodriguez begins to break down Sanchez, who's one of the key players on the Colombian side. He begins to break him down, and there's some twists and turns. There's a love interest, a very interesting ending. Like you said, you like unexpected endings. Well, this one has an unexpected endings. And people who read the book have told me they didn't see the ending coming. So that's basically where the book is at. There's a lot of action, and it's written in a mafia dialogue, so it's a little bit gritty, but that's what people like. It's a crime novel, so it is. And that's the first book. That's Stained Glass, and that was published the end of May of last year. Mm-hmm. And the new one was published. Cyclist Club was published the end of November.
All right. Now, you got your 3rd one that you're working. This is going to be a trilogy, if I ain't mistaken. That's what you said, right?
Well, it started out as a trilogy, but I think I might extend it a little bit past because Detective Rodriguez seems to be very popular. So I might extend it. Yeah, he's kind of a loose cannon. You know, he gets the job done, and he's got morals, but he kind of walks that fine line between right and wrong.
Right.
And sometimes you're happy that he's going over to the wrong side because the guys he takes it out on deserve it. So, exactly. But you're kind of happy that he's walking that fine line, you know?
Right.
And the second book, Cyclist Club, it's a psychological thriller. There's not any kind of drugs or organized crime. Mm-hmm. And it goes after a character named Zachariah. Zachariah was brought up by his father during the Cold War. Mm-hmm. And he experimented. His father was with the KGB, and his father would experiment with psychotic drugs, mm-hmm. and performance-enhancing drugs.
Gotcha.
Zachariah, all his life, wanted to be a bicyclist. He wanted to be in the Tour de France. But his father had other ideas for him. He wanted him to be part of the KGB and sort of carry on his legacy.
Right.
So Zachariah begins experimenting with psychoanalytic drugs, psychotic drugs, and performance-enhancing drugs, and begins to start his own bicycle team. Unfortunately, this cyclist team kills people. They film it, and then they show it to very wealthy people with caviar, lobster, champagne, and there's private screenings in these mansions, and that's called the Cyclist Club. The name of that organization is Cyclist Club,
Gotcha.
with Zachariah as the head. And again, this book, like the first, has a lot of twists and turns. And there's two cases running side by side. The daughter of the drug kingpin is now in prison. So there's two stories running side by side. So the first book blends into the second, and the second book will blend into the third somewhat.
It sounds to me like you got a really good, from what I looked at, because I did look at some of your reviews, and you got some nice reviews out there.
Thank you.
And, like Time for a Serial Killer, a lot of my reviews, even though I don't have a whole lot of reviews, all of them pretty much say, we need to see this one continued on. What they don't know, what they didn't understand was it's a 10-book series, and they don't know that until and I've already announced that the second one's coming now. I
saw your reviews. You got some good reviews. I mean, you got a lot, actually.
Yeah, that's, I got 23 up there, and then I got, one Book Viral, which is one of the best reviews I could imagine getting. I mean, but heck, a couple of my people, sit there compare me to, crime dramas like Criminal Minds or Basic Instinct or some of those, right? I'm like, I'm not trying to be any of those people. I'm just writing what I write. I write the way I like. And, I do conversational dialogue. My books are all dialogue and action driven.
Right.
And, if I went in there and put quotation marks every time someone spoke, my book would be nothing but a bunch of quotation marks with a few sentences in between. I don't use that. But
well, I like
style is a little bit different than mine from what I've looked at.
Yeah.
But
I talked to you. I'm a visual guy, so people say my book reads almost like a screenplay.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm doing it consciously, or maybe I'm doing it unconsciously, but that's how I write. I picture it in my head, and
right.
then I follow my. It's like I watch a movie in my head. That's how I write the books.
That is one of the best ways I've ever heard it explained, and until now, I've only heard me explain it that way.
But it's true.
People ask me, people are always asking, well, how do you start writing? I sat down and I start writing the first word. Whatever word pops in my head, it don't matter what it is. I'll put the first word in there. And then from there on out, it's like watching a brand new movie ain't nobody ever seen but me.
Exactly. And it plays in my head. It's amazing.
Yeah.
If you're like me, if you can project what's in your head on the screen,
oh yeah,
you get an Academy Award probably.
At least I'd win the Director of the Year, right?
Yeah. It's so. I mean, it's just that's how I write. That's how you write. I just play it over in my head. And the funny part about it is, I'll start going down one road, and all of a sudden, as I'm going down that road, playing this thing over, all of a sudden something will say, "Wait a minute! At this point, I should go this way," and all of a sudden, your original thought changes. And all of a sudden, there's a new thing playing in your head. There's a new movie going on.
It was like, all right, with mine. Every now and then, the current book I'm working on, I'll be writing something, and I'll finish a chapter or whatever. I wrote a chapter that I had not even planned on putting in the book. I wasn't planning on putting it in there whatsoever. I just started writing, and the whole damn thing wrote itself. You know what I mean? Pretty much. I'm like, okay, well, I wasn't planning on this, but it's a good spot. It made a pretty decent twist right here. And the way I ended that one was pretty good as well. But
that's true.
Now I get asked all the time, would-be authors that are looking to try and get published or looking to write a book for the first time. They always ask the same questions. Well, what do you write about? I always say, write what you know. That's what I was always told, right? People, let me tell you something. Ignore that. That's a crock of crap. If I wrote what I know, I don't know jack, and I damn sure don't know nothing about serial killers. Just junk up.
That's good.
But, we got to talk to Mr. George here. But George, what do you have any knowledge, any background in covering the kind of stuff that you're writing about?
No, actually, first of all, I want to get the record straight. I'm not organized crime.
Didn't
and I
figure
was
you.
not I was not in law enforcement.
Okay.
But I enjoy the genre, especially the old black and white ones from the
Oh, no.
50s and 40s, the film noirs. I love that. But all through the years, I've gotten interested in that kind of a genre,
Mhm.
organized crime. I read a lot of newspaper stories about it, and I'm not a big reader. I'm a more visual guy. I'd rather see it on the screen, and that's kind of where I get my ideas from. Plus, I grew up in Manhattan, and I grew up with guys who were walking that shady side of the street, let's say.
The
So
wise.
some ideas came from them, their lives, looking back now. So I mean, it's a combination of different things. It's not just something that I got up in the morning and said, "Let me write about organized crime." That's like me writing about farming. I mean, I don't know anything about it.
I grew up on a farm for the most part. I couldn't write farming if I wanted to. But the thing is that if a writer has a good imagination, they can write any
Right,
genre whatsoever.
and
If
that's it.
and it doesn't have to be something that they know about or or they like. It's better. Sometimes it's better for them if it is, but not always. As you know, me and John can testify. Ain't neither one of us killed nobody. Ain't neither one of us been in criminal organizations that we know about. But yet we're still writing about it,
Right,
right?
right.
I used to listen to a radio program called shoot, I can't remember, Radio Classics, and they play
Oh
all
yeah,
old detective radio shows like Johnny
yes.
Dollar and things like that. I love those things, and after I get through Confessions, or after I get through with the Nightmare book series, which is the 10 books I'm working on, I'm planning on writing a detective series after that. So I might take some pointers from you on that one.
Yeah, listen, why don't we just do something together? I'd love to.
Oh, good Lord, yeah. I think me and you come up with with some really crazy stuff.
Yep.
Put mine, your imagination together. Shoot.
There was, speaking of the old radio detective broadcast, there was a station here in New York. I'm in Connecticut now. We have a place in Connecticut, a place in New York, but the station came out of New York called WBAI. And every Sunday night, I think 7 o'clock, they would play the old radio detective with the sound effects and the people screaming. But your imagination kind of took off and you visualized the characters. It was an amazing thing. You had the whole thing in your head.
Exactly, you did. I mean, I
Yeah.
grew up. My dad had a big old floor radio, with the big old dials on there. I grew up listening to that thing before we ever got a television set.
Mhm.
So I mean, and that's telling my age a little bit. I know that much. He might be a day or two older than me, but not by much, I don't think.
No.
But George, what did you do for a living before you started writing?
Well, I was involved. I used to do a lot of photography. I was a photographer for a while early on. Now I work in large format display work. So some of the billboards you see, if you
Hmm.
go into a store, you see graphics. You see visuals all over the store. That's the kind of stuff we do now. I'm still employed. I'm still working
Right.
uh, because I enjoy what I do. But yeah, that's what I did, and that's what I still do. Photography. I studied filmmaking. I studied all the photography. I did everything in photography, and now I'm working in large format.
Well, I'd like to get into filmmaking, but I'd rather somebody make my book into a damn
Me
film.
too. I hear you, man. I'm waiting for somebody to pick it up. I think any of them would be a good movie. Even yours. I read the first part of yours. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like from what I've read, I mean, I have not read the first part of your book yet. I've got to read Stained Glass. I got to read that one. But I did read the reviews, and from what everybody's telling me about it, it'd make a really daggone good TV series.
That's what they say. Yeah, they say it would be. The problem is I've been in contact actually. My wife Terry and I, we've been in contact with a few people. There's a show on TV called Gravesend. I
I don't
think
think.
it's about the mob in the '80s in Brooklyn, and we
Okay.
actually spoke to one of the characters on there who was on a different show with me.
Hmm.
Uh, and we had dinner. We had a good time. It became a friend. So we're trying to maybe see if he wants to do something with it, or maybe you know somebody who might want to do something with it, because he works in the organized crime genre. Every movie he's done has involved organized crime.
Yeah, but
He's not a chief player. He's a secondary player, but he's very good at what he does.
But he can actually get you in touch with producers and stuff like that. That might be interesting.
Exactly. And he was saying, not right now with this time, with this COVID and everything, it's a little bit tough. But if things begin to open up, things might change. So it's a resource for us. And then I went to the Long Island Film Festival.
Right.
And I spoke to some people there. One producer who had a show there, who had a movie there, said that to film this movie, Stained Glass, if they decide to do a movie out of it, would cost millions. Yeah. I don't know if that's true, but he says it will cost millions. His budget is like $50,000, $100,000 films. He doesn't do much more than that. He's not a high roller, so to speak.
He's more like a small time documentary or something like that.
Yeah, or low budget features, with no known characters. Yeah.
He's trying to break through just like everybody else is.
Exactly. The guys you want to hit are the big money guys. You got to get their interest.
You got to get their interest. That's unto itself right there. Oh, I mean, yeah. If I could find somebody, I could, say, hey, look, somebody, please turn them on to this, right? And I'm sure, George, I know he'd do the same thing, right? But photography and filmmaking, I mean, you study those, but you didn't go into filmmaking. Why is that?
I lost interest maybe, because that photography I picked up on my own, and I started working on my own. Then I took some courses and I read a few books, and then I got involved in it. I'm going back a while now, but I was, that was in my late 20s and early 30s. And then I studied motion picture production. And then I just sort of let it go, and I got involved in the industry that I'm in now.
Well, apparently it's very lucrative for you, and it give you the opportunity to sit down and write Stained Glass and Cyclist Club, and for that we are grateful, because people say what, if you're a thriller, if you love thrillers, you love crime dramas, you gotta read Stained Glass and Cyclist Club. You're gonna love both of them, I guarantee it. I haven't read it yet. I ain't, I don't usually push stuff I don't read, but if the reviews are there, then I've got to go with it. And the reviews for his book are there. They are very well. You got a lot of people in there that knows what they're talking about, apparently. And every one of them are pointing toward him, having a daggone good book out there. He just, needs the support from the reading public to help out by buying it a little bit, get it up there. And if you buy our books, any of our books, I don't care if it's mine, George's, or another author's, make sure you do a review on it, because that's where you help us authors the most out there.
Exactly.
Writing a review for our books.
That's true.
It doesn't matter if it's a bad review or if it's a good review. We don't care. Just be honest and write a real review. There's enough people out there trying to do this on the stuff, like trying to charge you $200 or $300 for 20 or 40 reviews that, dang good well ain't nobody read it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fine to you, right? But now, we can't go too much more into Stained Glass and Cyclist, because we'll break that fifth rule, which is we don't do spoilers, right, people?
Right.
So now you're currently working on the third book, if I'm not mistaken. Right. And what's that one called?
That one's called Red Rock Bleeds. It takes place in Las Vegas. It's funny, I'm at a kind of a point now in the book. I'm 3/4 of the way done, but I need to get the middle down to get to the ending. I'm like, I don't know how to make that bridge yet. I'm working on it, but I don't know how to build that bridge between where I'm at now and the ending of the book.
We talk after the show.
Yeah.
Maybe we can help each other out. But like I said, I write like George. What's up here goes down here. There's no filter in between, people. I don't sit there and try to decipher what I'm doing. I don't try to plan my books out. As a lot of a lot of there's authors out there that will plan every aspect of the book.
Hmm.
From sounds of things, George is pretty much like me. He just sits down and starts writing.
Right.
Right. Now, but before I ever start writing, I already know the beginning, the middle, and the end. I've already got that bridge in there that you're talking about.
Yeah.
But it's very vague. You know what I mean? It isn't word for word, but when I get up to that point, bridging it is not an issue. It closes that gap real quick, like just by having that one little spot in there, that little spot that's hanging that bridge right there that I've got to build off of. And sometimes that's the hardest admin thing, is finding that one little spot to hang that bridge on. Otherwise, rope.
It kind of slowed me down. Stained glass took a long time to write, only because I wrote 10 pages and put it away, 10 pages and put it away. And then I met Terry, my wife, in 2014, and she said, keep going. It's a good book, keep writing. I kept writing it, and now it's published. Cyclist Club, it was amazing how fast I wrote that book. It flowed. The first one was handwritten, 326 pages, handwritten. I didn't have a laptop.
Hey, man, half of Conventions Before Death was done on a cell phone.
Wow.
I'm not kidding you. At least the first 12 chapters was done on a cell phone. And then after that, I got an iPad and started using that sucker. And there's no history. I mean, I got somebody editing it for me right now, and then I'm going to put it up there on the 14th. They better have it ready, or I'm going to be upset people.
Yep.
If there's any advice whatsoever, you give a would-be author, somebody who hasn't written the first word yet, all they have is an idea for a book, what would you tell them?
Well, like you said, and what we were talking about, sit down and start writing. Yeah. Sometimes one word leads to 10, and 10 leads to 50. Once you get, like you said, have an idea, though. Don't just write. Have an idea what you want to write about. Yeah. If you want to write about crime, start writing about crime. If you love cars, write about cars. I mean, but it starts with the first word. It starts with the idea.
Everything starts with that first word and that idea, like you said.
Right.
And I like that. I mean, too many people would like to try to give some drawn out explanation of what you should do first, or break it down, or whatever. People, if you're interested in becoming an author and you've got a story to tell, and everybody has a story to tell. I'll tell you that. Some of us can write it a little bit better than others. Some people can't. Some people have to pay a ghostwriter. Whichever way, get your story out there. You can't get people interested in your story unless it's out there for people to get.
Yes.
Right,
yep, absolutely.
I have to agree with George. First thing to do is that first word, that idea. Hold those two together, and they'll come really close to one another.
Exactly.
Away from phrases like "once upon a time," it don't work too good. It's great for Cinderella.
There's too many once upon a times out there.
Exactly, too many of them out there. I think probably the one thing I would probably tell any would-be writer is, if it seems like it's boring to you, then you know it's going to be boring to the dadburn audience. So sometimes taking a break from your writing,
good point,
a few days later, or a week, or a month later even, and starting to reread it, like the last little section. I do not promote editing before the book is finished. I promote editing after the book is finished. But, everybody go back in there and reads the first couple of paragraphs, or the last couple of paragraphs they wrote to find out where they're at and what they, might not have, there might have been something they left off they want to put in there. There might have been something they put in there they didn't even realize they put it in there.
Right.
And every single time when they reread those few paragraphs right there, that keys them in on how the next one's going to go, and what's going to start it off, or it keys them in. Oh Lord, I messed that one up. I need to try that crap again.
Yep.
Is that? I mean, how many times have you done that? I know I have.
Yes, I go back, like I'll write something, sometimes I work early into the morning, like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, I'll be writing. That happened a lot with the cyclist club where I was writing late at night. The next morning, I'll get up and I'll read what I wrote and I'll say, whoa, that's got to change. I can't leave that in there. I would take whole sentences out and change them.
Exactly.
Because fresh eyes in the morning, you see it differently, you know?
You're absolutely right. That's why I write early in the morning. When I say early in the morning, I'm talking about 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. It ain't because I ain't been to bed. It's because that's what time I wake up.
Yeah, well, you worked on a farm, so.
Well, I did. I don't anymore. I mean, I'm kind of semi-retired sort of
Yeah.
bit. You know, I got to have something to fill my time. So number one, writing does that. Number two, me doing this show to try to help other authors out.
It's great. It's great.
That's what this is about. It ain't about me, y'all. Yeah. Don't never let me lie to you like that. I created this show to help boost my book.
Right.
To help boost everybody else's. I ain't gonna be no daggone hypocrite and say I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not plugging my book at least 3 or 4 times on this show, Time for a Serial Killer, Lifetime of Murder. Don't forget Confessions Before Death coming out on February 14th. When do you think you're going to have that third book out there, George?
I'm thinking, we're in January, February, probably March. I think I'll probably have it finished by early March, first week in March. Because right now, before we got on the show, I was thinking of how I could make that bridge. I have an idea in my head, so I'm going to see if I can, after we get off this, maybe later on tonight, I'll put it down, and then I'll see if that is enough to make me go all the way to the end. If I can get that little connection, I can finish it quicker probably. Because I got the ending. I know what I'm going to do at the ending. I just don't have that little bridge in the middle or towards the ending.
I think you have that little bridge in your head right there that you just came up with. I think you already know that's where you're going to go with it at.
Yeah, I think so.
I do the same thing. I'll be thinking, even though I have the beginning, the middle, and the end, there's all kinds of little bitty parts in between that I ain't got a clue about until I start writing. And I might start writing and be like, oh man, what am I supposed to, how am I getting from point A to point B here? Because there's a lot of stuff that happens between those 2 points, and it ain't always a short straight line.
Exactly.
So I mean, this is why a lot of writers come up with writer's block. I have not experienced it yet. I dare say I probably will sooner or later. But I might take a couple of months off in between writing, and I hadn't even looked yet. That's what took me so long on Confessions Before Death, is because I got down to wrote 5 chapters and stopped. A couple of months later, wrote a few more, got down to 12 chapters, and then I saw one review on my book that gave me the inspiration to go from 12 chapters to 35.
Exactly.
Finish.
Those reviews help. It's like help your enthusiasm to keep writing. You know?
It does. And having somebody like your wife behind you,
100%.
Support you and pushing you to drive for strive and drive for bigger and better things in your writing, that right there is priceless.
That's important to have that support. You know, she bought me the laptop for Christmas, and it's been like it changed my writing.
Oh yeah, it will.
I mean, it's amazing. It changed my writing. I mean, I was doing everything by hand. Stained glass was all by hand.
Yeah, I mean, Time for a Serial Killer was first written in 3 small spiral notebooks. And then I lost my. I think my last wife actually destroyed them because she didn't want to. I lost the manuscript several times. Finally finished it in 2012, and I started it in '98.
Wow.
That tells you anything, right? Finally started it up again in 2012 and finished it in 3 months. I mean, it ain't no 300 pages. It's only like 60,000 words, 66,000 words, something like that.
Yeah.
It barely classifies as a novel, which I was really surprised. I thought it was a short story.
Well, the threshold, I think, is 60,000 words.
Depending upon the publisher, yeah. I mean, pardon me. I have seen publishers advertise 50,000 words and 40,000 words.
That's small. That's
I mean, a 40 I know is a novelle.
right.
Probably 50 is probably, I think, is a novelle. Pardon me.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know. Indigestion ain't nothing, so I don't know. That might have been that Slim Jim I ate a minute ago. Who knows, right? But I don't really go by that anymore. I just start writing, and in most of my chapters, I set a word count that I'm going to hit one way or the other. When I say hit, I don't mean dead on. I mean, I'll either be just under that word count or I'll be over the word count, one or the other, for that particular chapter. Do you do something similar to that, or you just play it by ear?
I just write. I get to a point where a little voice in my head says, this should be a new chapter. I don't pre-count. I don't try to do it goes by the thoughts, by what's happening in that chapter.
Right.
If let's say there's two people talking in a car and then having some conversation about drugs being moved around Long Island or something. I realize there's a point then where when that conversation comes to an end and now they're in a different environment or a different part,
right,
that's a new chapter for me, or at least a new paragraph.
Okay.
So some chapters may be 200 or 300 words long, or 300, 400 words long, and some are only 150, 200 words long. So because the scenario changes. I don't want people to get confused.
Right, but I guess that's the thing about the way I write. Right, when I start a chapter, I already know what the name of that chapter is. Well, I might not know the name of the chapter yet. It just depends. Because some of my chapters do write themselves, and I ain't got one yet. But I always set my base at 2,000 words, because to me that's like 10 pages or something like that
for each chapter.
And I think that's a good round number. But everything within that chapter is all about that chapter, and I stop whenever I do when I reach that little phrase down there at the 2,000 word. I might be a couple of hundred words over. I might be 100 words less or whatever, but it's going to be right around in that area that I end it on an even mark, that the next chapter picks up right where I left off at. Yeah. So I mean, and that sounds pretty much like what you're doing.
And when you look at Through Stained Glass, you'll see that one chapter will be a page and a half, because it's a quick conversation between two detectives, and then the next chapter could run as much as 6-7 pages.
Right.
Because it takes that long to explain the situation that the characters are in. Okay. So it does vary with me. It varies a lot. I don't set a predetermined. I just let the theme of the book and the way the book is flowing dictate what chapters. And as far as chapter titles are concerned, I'm not that good with it. I get a lot of help from my wife.
Hey, wherever it comes from, man. I mean, whether it's your wife or your puppy dog,
Because I'll explain. I'll say, what do you think? What should I title this chapter? And she'll read it. And she'll say, how about this? And I'll say, well, how about that? And then we bounce the ideas back and forth, and then we come up with a title.
I've got a friend of mine. He's currently writing a book, and he wants my help on it, but not as far as being a co-author. He just wants my opinions and stuff like that. So we're bouncing ideas all the time. So I know exactly what you're talking about. I mean, me and him have written probably 8 books in our heads. It hasn't hit paper yet, and that's talking about it on the phone. We both of us. He still drives rigs, and I used to drive rigs. So I mean, all we had time for was talking on the phone.
Yep.
Right. Well, George, it's been a pleasure having you on the show today.
It's been a pleasure being on. Thank you.
I cannot go away. I've got to mention this, people. Miss Stephanie, you got a good author right here, hon. He knows what he's talking about with his crime novels, right? And
thank you.
Two minds thinking alike. There you go. I had to put that in there because she made that comment.
Well, she's quite a publisher. She's a go-getter. She doesn't stop.
No, she doesn't. And me and her became pretty good friends, and she's done a lot of encouraging and help for my career as far as writing is concerned, and especially the show right here. But she's gonna get a link to this show just like you're gonna get one when I get it.
Good. Yeah.
But George, it's been a pleasure. When your next one comes out, I'd like to have you back on the show again.
Absolutely.
And people, like I said, now you got to go look George up. All right. Stained Glass is book number 1, and Cyclist Club, book number 2. Book number 3, around March or so. So let's keep an eye out for y'all. Again, this is R.K. Mullins, author of Time for a Serial Killer. George, what's your last name again?
Marzocchi.
Huh?
I get that a lot, I was going to change it to Smith, but it's Marzocchi, Marzocchi.
Marzocchi.
That's it.
I like a good name.
Good Irish name.
Good Irish name? Okay, that's it. There we go. I can get with the Irish now because I got a lot of that in me. But anyway, it's R.K. Mullins, author of Time for a Serial Killer, A Lifetime of Murder. And don't forget, Confessions Before Death, Satan's Revenge coming out. When I say Valentine's Day, right?
Valentine's Day.
Hey, George, you've been great. People, please look up Stained Glass and Cyclist Club and help this author along a little bit. Give him some good reviews. Give him some reviews, good or otherwise. Just make sure they're honest. Y'all have a good day now.
Take care, Ron. Nice talking to you.